Welcome back to another project. In this project, we're going to create a rock, paper, scissors game. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have 3 choices to choose: rock, paper, and scissors. And if we click, for example, on the rock symbol, we're going to see the result, which is, in this case, is a tie. And as you can see, the scores are still the same. For us, it's 0, and the computer is 0. If we choose another choice, still we get the tie. Now we lost the game, and as you can see, the rock beats the scissor because the computer choice was rock and our choice was scissor. So we lost the game, and the computer gained a score of 1. So if we continue playing this time we won, and then rock beats scissors. So because the choice of us was rock and the choice of the computer was scissor. So we're going to firstly create the projects using HTML, and then we're going to style it using CSS with this modern design. And then we're going to use JavaScript to randomly create some choices for computer and then compare it with the choice of us by tracking our choice and the computer and compare them. We can just print some text here, and also we're going to track the numbers and the scores of the user and the computer here at the bottom. So in the next section, we're going to start with the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. Welcome back to the project. In this section, we're going to create the HTML part of the project. As you can see, I have put the final version here for our comparison. As you can see, we have a title, we have 3 kind of emojis for rock, paper, and scissors, and also we have the scores. So we need to create an h1 tag for the title. We have a paragraph here, and also we have a div with 3 buttons. And finally, we have the scores at the bottom. So first things we need to do is to create an HTML file. So I'm going to create the project in my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call the folder the name of the project, which is rock, paper, and scissors. We just say rock, paper, and scissors game. And when we create the folder, we can just right click on it and click on open with code, which is going to open it with Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. That is my favorite text editor, but you're of course free to use any text editor that you're familiar with. Then we have now Visual Studio Code with the rock, paper, and scissors folder open on it inside the Explorer section. And here now we can create a new file, and we can call this file index.html. So we have created the file now. It's completely empty, but we can use an exclamation mark to create an HTML boilerplate. So if you write down exclamation mark and just click on the first auto suggestion, you get an HTML boilerplate, which includes the doc type, the HTML tag, and the body and head and body sections. Let me explain this one real quick. If this is your first project, here doc type tells the browser which version of the HTML we are working on. As we are using HTML5, we just need to have HTML here to tell the browser that we are using HTML5. Then we have the HTML tag, which is covering both of the head and the body section. The lang attribute here defines the language of the page, and in our case, the language is set to be English by just setting EN. And we have the head tag, which includes the metadata tags and also the title tag. The first metadata tag defines the charset attribute, and UTF-8 is recommended by HTML5 because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols. For example, the users come to website and want to see these symbols, these fonts. They won't have any problem see these characters and symbols because the UTF-8 is most common one. Then we have the compatibility metadata tag for the Internet Explorer browsers, which tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Microsoft Edge. After that, we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen. width of the browser to width of the device's screen. For example, if you have a mobile screen watching the website, you're going to have a smaller screen than the person is watching a tablet or desktop computer. Here we have the initial scale, which is initial zoom level of the browser, which is 100% in our case by setting the default value to 1. Finally, we have the title, which is document, and we can see the title inside the browser. If you open the browser, I'm going to use an extension called Live Server. So if you have installed this, otherwise you just go to your extension using Ctrl+Shift+X and just search for Live Server. And here you can just find this extension. I have already installed it. You can install this one, which is going to create a local server for you. And if you have installed this one, you can use this button here, go live, or you can right click and use open with live server, which is going to open your website inside the browser. And this is going to refresh this website each time you save the browser if you have already set the autosave for your website, for your Visual Studio Code. We have now the document as our title inside the website. Let's change this title to the name of our project, which is Rock, Paper, Scissors Game. Now, if you look at our website, you can see that the title is changed to Rock, Paper, Scissors Game. So let's bring the website on the right side by using the start key in Windows and right arrow right key. And we can bring the Visual Studio Code on the left side so we can see the changes in real time. After that, we can just add our H1 tag with the name of our project. So you can see it inside the website, Rock, Paper, Scissors Game. So now we have the title, as you can see. After the title, we're going to have a paragraph saying, choose your move. Then we're going to have 3 buttons. So I'm going to put the 3 buttons here. Just as you can see, we have 3 buttons, rock, paper, and scissors. So as I want to bring them next to each other, not on top of each other. That's why I put them inside a div. And then we're going to set the div with a class of buttons. And then here, I'm going to press enter. For creating this div with a class of buttons, we just need to write down dot buttons and press enter. And here we can just have our first button. And then as you can see, I'm getting a suggestion from GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot is not free. If you want to use GitHub Copilot, you need to pay $10 per month. But if you're a student, you can have this extension for free, which is going to suggest you some codes based on your previous codes and the codes online. So you can just search GitHub Copilot. So I have already installed it. I think it's not this GitHub Copilot. It is a AI pair programmer, which is using GPT for suggesting real time in your internet in your Visual Studio Code. But if you don't want to use it, it's totally up to you. You can just type whatever you want here. So I'm gonna get the suggestion here: 3 buttons, rock, paper, and scissors. Each button has an ID. The first one is rock, paper, and scissors. But instead of just the text rock, I want to use something called HTML entities. HTML entities, it's like some symbols you can use inside your website, but they have some codes. So you have to write down, for example, for rock, you have to write down M and $X 1F44A. As you can see, we can just get let me zoom. You can see the rock symbol emoji. For the paper, we have this emoji, which is pound. It can be lowercase, it doesn't matter. 1F590. And then you need to add a semicolon at the end too. Okay. For the scissors, I use $X 270C and this. Okay. So now we have the 3 emojis by just writing down these HTML entities. If you don't know which symbol you use, you just search online HTML entities, for example, for rock hand symbol or paper hand symbol or something like that. You can find plenty of websites that is showing you these symbols. You can copy and paste. Okay, after creating these buttons, we're going to have a paragraph here showing the results. I'm just want to create a paragraph with the class with an ID of result, which is just we can just say for now hard-coded U1, and then after that you're gonna have another paragraph with the ID of scores. Inside this one, you're going to have you're going to say your score. Okay, you can just say your score, and then this ID I want to set it to be, for example, your player score or user score. After that, we're going to have the computer score, and then we have this span with the ID of computer score. So we're going to use this ID to target this span using JavaScript, and then we're going to dynamically change this score from 0, for example, to 1, 2, 3. But for now, we just hard-coded these values because we want to use CSS in the next section to style these HTML tags and text. So as you can see, we just have a paragraph with the ID of scores, and then we're going to have this paragraph, your score 0 and computer score 0, and then we have 3 buttons and the h1 tag and a paragraph saying choose your move. So that was it for the HTML part of the project. In the next section, we're going to work on the CSS part of the project and style it like this modern design using CSS. So see you in the next section. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the CSS part and style the project like the one in the final version with the background color, and also we're going to have some background colors for the emojis. We're going to bring everything to the center and etc. So the first things we need to do is to create an we need to create a CSS file. We need to open the Explorer section, and we just create a new file and we call it style.css, and we need to add a link for this file inside the HTML file. We can just go, let's close this one. You need to add it at the inside the head tag. You just need to add a link tag. You just write down link and click on the third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS, and here the href would be style.css because both files are located at the same directory. The destination would be style.css, and this is a relationship between the HTML file and this style sheet. It's style.css. So now we can use the style.css for our project. The first part of the project we want to target is the body section. So inside the HTML, we have a body section that is covering all the project. So I'm going to target a body tag. We're just writing body. And then we want to do some, for example, I want to change the background color. The color I want to use is kind of light gray, which has the number F1, F1, F1. You can see this color. After that, we're going to have a font family. I want to change the font of the text using font family. The font I want to use is Arial. Let's add the semicolon here. We forgot the semicolon. So I want to use this font is Arial, and if the Arial is not available, the sans serif is going to be used inside the project. I want to remove the default margin and padding for the project as well. So this is going to connect this one to the wall. As you can see, we have removed the default margin. So we have finished with the body section. Now we're gonna work on the h1 tag, this tag. So we're going to target this h1 tag. So what I want to do is actually set the font size to be, we can just choose 2 rem. 2 rem means 2 times of the default value of the rem is the default value of the font size, which is 16 pixels. So we get the double of that. Let me remove the zoom level so you can see the changes in a real way. And then I want to bring this one to the center using text align center. And let's add some padding at the top of 100 pixels. So it's going to push it a little bit down. After the H1 tag, we're going to target this paragraph, the first paragraph, choose your move. And also I want to target the other paragraphs too. So I'm going to just choose a P tag and let's change the font size. We get this suggestion that is okay. We're going to set this font size to 1.2 rem. We want to bring it to the center using text align center. And after that, I'm going to have some margin at the bottom of, for example, just a 0.5 rem, which is 8 pixels, which is going to add some space between them. So everything looks okay, but I'm going to just style this button first. So first we target this div with the class of buttons. We're going to bring the items in the center. So we're going to use a button. We're going to target the div with the class of buttons. So we just write down the dot buttons because this is a class. We added dot at the beginning. So the display is going to be flex, justify content center. We don't need this margin bottom here. So justify content center is going to bring everything to the center, as you can see horizontally. Display flex is going to just, in order to use justify content center, you need to change the display to flex. After that, we're going to target the button, each button. So because we want to target the button, and then we can just say button, we target the div button, the tag button. I want to remove the border. So I set the border to be none. Let's change the color. We don't need to change the color. We just want to change the font size to be 3 rem. So we make them bigger. Let's add some margin. Top and bottom 0. Left and right to be 0.5 rem, which is going to add some space between them. And then we have some padding of 0.5 rem. You cannot see the padding, but when we add the background color, you can see the padding clearly. So now, and then when I hover over them, I want to see the cursor to be pointer. So I'm going to change the cursor to be pointer. So when we hover over them, we see a pointing hand. So let's add some background so you can see the changes more. For now, I want to add some background color. For example, this color. Now I want to just change the border radius to be 5 pixels, which is going to make it rounded in the corner. And then when we hover over these buttons, so we can just target this hover with the pseudo class of, we just target these buttons with the pseudo class of hover. So when we hover over this button, I want to change the opacity to be, for example, 80% or 70%. So when we hover over them, we see they are like a lighter color. So it's kind of hovering effect. And then this hovering effect is super fast. I want to add some transition so it looks like a smoother. So I'm going to add a transition to all 0.3 seconds with ease in and ease on effect. So when we just, you see the transition here when we hover over them. So now we can just remove the background color. I want to choose a different background color for each of them. For example, I want to target the rock one. Let's see we just want to change the background color. It's kind of red, it is fine. And then we want to target the pepper. This one looks okay too, but I want to use the blue color, which is 2196 F3. And then we're going to have the scissors with the green color. That's nice. So as you can see, we are getting suggestions from GitHub Copilot. Before, I've decided to not teach with the GitHub Copilot, but as the AI advance every day. I think it's essential to know how to use AI to code faster. So you can just use GitHub Copilot or any other AI assistant to code faster, but I think it's essential to understand each code. For example, what this one does and why we just use, for example, pound sign. For example, we had this ID of the rock. We have used this pound sign or the hashtag for the targeting the rock. So these things you need to understand. But for coding faster, you can use these assistants. And finally, we're going to just style this player, a user score, and the computer score. I want to make the user score color to be, for example, green and the computer to be red. So we can just target that one using the pound sign. We just say user score. And then we can just, so we just change the color. Let's see what color suggestion we get. We get blue, that is fine. And then we get the computer score, which is red. That's fine. So that was it for creating our final version. As you can see, in the next section, we're going to work on the functionality using JavaScript. As you can see, now we are choosing the different things. We see it, for example, this one is tie game, and then our score is going to be recorded here. As you can see, your score, the computer score is different, and you can see it. So in the next section, we are going to, okay, I think our design is okay. In the next section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part of the project to add functionality like event listener to the buttons, and then we're going to calculate who won the game. And also we want to create some random variables, which is going to create the computer decision on the rock, paper, and scissors. And based on these decisions, we're going to compare our decision, I mean the user's decision and the computer decision. And then finally, we decide who won the game, and then we store the game inside here. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part and add more functionalities to the project. The first things we need to do is to create the JavaScript file inside our folder. So we need to open the Explorer section using Ctrl+Shift+E. And here we can just create a new file, and I'm going to call the file index.js, but you can call it, for example, script.js, app.js. It's totally up to you. And similar to the one we have done for the CSS file, we need to add a link to this JavaScript file inside the JavaScript, inside the HTML file. So, but instead of just putting it inside the head section, we have to put it at the end of the body section, because we need this file to be loaded, and then we just call the JavaScript file and add the functionality. Otherwise, the JavaScript cannot have access to these elements. So the script tag we have, and then the file name is index.js in my case, and as they are on the same directory, we just need to write down index.js inside the src. So now we can use the index.js inside our projects. So first things we need to do is to bring these buttons here. We need to have access to these buttons. So the buttons, they have the tag of button. So we can target that one using a method called query selector all. So we just create a constant and we call it buttons element, or we can just say button, or just say buttons, and then we just use we just target the document, which means all the browser, and then we use query selector all to select everything with the tag of the button here. So now we have access to the button. Now we can just add an event listener to the button. So when we click on it, we can just call a function or do some other stuff. So we just say buttons, and we can use for each method to target each button, as you can see from the suggestion. And then we can add an event listener. So we get each button here. After using the for each gives you each button. And then you can add an event listener to each button. The event listener we want to use is click. So when we click on the button, we're going to trigger a function. So for example, here we have console log you clicked me. So, and then also where I want to show which button we have clicked. So we just say button, because we have the button ID and then the ID is rock. So we can target that one. We just say button.id. But this should be outside this. Okay. So let's see. Let's open the console using F12. Let's bring the console on the bottom here. Now we have the console. Let me bring this one a little bit upper. Okay. Let's clean the console. If I click on this rock symbol, let's refresh the page. When I click on the rock, we should see the rock being console log. So we are getting an error. Let's see. I think we have missed some parentheses here. Okay, I think yes, we need to add a parenthesis here. So now, if I click on the rock, I get you clicked me rock. If I click on just the hand sign, we just say you clicked me paper and then scissors. So we have access to these IDs now. But instead of just console logging, I want to create a function and compare this ID with the one that the computer chooses. So first, I want to create a function that is going to let's create a function which is going to call computer play. As you can see, we get the suggestion. So computer play, what it does, we have some choices, rock, paper, and scissors inside this array. And we put it inside this constant called choices. We want to use a random choice. We use a method called random to create a number between 0 and 1. And then we're going to multiply this one to the length of this array, which is now 3. Okay? But the array starts from 0, 1, 2. Okay? So this is going to create some number between 0, 1, and 2. And then we get this number and we put it inside this array as a choice. For example, if the number is calculated 1, we get paper. If it's 2, we get scissors. And if we choose 0, we get rock. So this is going to return that one, return that choice. And then here the math.floor actually, because the random number is between 0 and 1, and it can be 0, it can be 0.1, 0.2, but we want to just make it rounded to the floor using math.floor. So now we can calculate the player, the computer. We can just get this choice and put it here. For example, I want to console log, and this is our choice, the first one. We can just call it user choice. And then we can just console log computer choice as well. And then we can just call this function. So now if I click on the rock, so let's refresh the page. When I click on the rock, user choice is rock, the computer choice is paper. So each time we get a random computer choice, and then we can choose, for example, I choose this scissor. So user choice is scissor and the computer one is rock. So now we have this system, but we have to compare this one and decide who wins the game. Okay. So instead of just console logging, I want to create another function. I just want to create a function, call a function called play round. And this function is going to pass two things. The choice that we have, and also the choice of the computer. So play round, let's make it camel case. So now we need to create this function. So I'm going to create this function play round, which is going to get the player selection and the computer selection. And also you can see from the suggestion, let me just paste the suggestion, but I just choose tab to accept the Copilot suggestion. As you can see, if the player selection and the computer selection is equal, for example, I use rock, the computer choice was rock, it's going to return it's a tie. But if the player is rock and the computer is scissor, or the player is paper, and the computer is rock, and then if the player selection is scissors and the computer selection is paper, this is going to return you win. And this is going to show the player selection, which is rock, for example. We just say rock beats, for example, the scissor. Otherwise, we're just going to say you lose, and the computer selection, which is, for example, scissor, is going to beat the player scissor, player selection, which is, for example, anything. For example, now let's see and what we get here. So now we get a player play round. So we get the both of the input. So we pass this input button ID and the computer play. So when we just pass this one and we get it here inside this function, we use these two inputs to calculate who wins the game. And we're going to return this text. You win, you lose, or it's a tie. So now I think we can, let me console log this one. So after the player, let's console log. I think there we can, we set this one to something like a result. And then we can just console log result. So let's see if I choose this rock. So we're getting an error. Log is not defined. Okay, we are returning, and it should be fine. Let me refresh the page. Okay, so I choose the paper, and then I lost. Paper beats rock because the choice of the computer was rock. My choice was paper, so I lost the game. If I choose the scissor, if I choose this paper, this time I lost too because the computer. Oh, sorry, that was my choice. Rock was my choice, paper was computer choice, so I lost the game. So I want to win one time. So this is a tie, 2 times tie. I lost. I'm not going to win. Oh, okay, I won. So I choose the scissor, and scissor beats paper. So computer choice was paper. So now we are getting this result, and we are console logging the result. But I don't want to console log the result. I want to instead change this U1, which is hard-coded for now, here, this result with this result section. So we're going to, after the play round, we calculate this one. We return everything here. Now, instead of console logging, we got the result. I want to just, I want to bring this ID, the result, this paragraph, and change it here. So I'm gonna bring this paragraph. I just want to call it result element, and this is going to be we can just target that one using query selector, and then we just target this result. This is one way. The other way is use the get element by ID method, and then we can just pass the ID, which is result. Now we have this result element. We can just change its value. We just say result element dot text content. We set it to be this result. Text content is going to change the content inside that value. So now if I choose, for example, rock, I lost the game because the computer choice was paper. So paper beats rock. So I choose again. It's a tie. This one, tie, and then now again I lost. So as you can see, it's working and showing the result here. But we are not tracking the a score here. A score is always 0 for the user and the computer. So we're gonna track the score as well. So we have just returned something here, but we haven't calculated actually the score of the player. So I'm gonna create 2 variables here using let. The variable, the first one is player score, and then the other one is computer score. And then we want to update these things each time each of them win the game. For example, here we are returning just it's a tie. But we want to change the value of the score as well. For example, here it's a tie, so the score is not going to change. But this side we're going to increase the player score 1. The plus means increase 1. For example, it's 1, it's going to be 2, If it's 2, it's going to be 3. So plus plus is going to add a number to this variable. And then if we lose, we're going to increase the computer score. And also we need to now we are updating these scores. When we update these scores, we want to update these numbers here as well. So we need to bring these elements. The first element is user score. The other one is computer score. So I'm going to bring these two here as well. So I'm going to create a constant. This is going to be the player score element, which the ID is player score. The player score is actually, it's called user score here. So I'm going to just change this one to user score. And then for the computer score, we have this get element ID that we are targeting this ID of the computer score. So now we have these two elements. Now we can just change their value. So here, when we increase the size, I think here we can change. We just say player score. The text content is going to be this player score. And then here we're going to update the computer score. So let's try. Text content is going to change the text inside this element. And we're going to set it to this computer score. So let's try. So I lost the game. So computer gained 1 score. So you see the computer is 1. So let me zoom this. So now I won. So scissors beat paper. And then the score is 1 for me. It's tied, doesn't have any change as long as you're tied. So I won again. As you can see, it's going and continue changing these values. So you can keep track of your gaming scores here. All right. So, and then if the new person comes, or if you want to just see and start a new game, you just need to refresh the page and the scores will be 0. And as you can see, now the hard-coded value is still here. You won. We can remove that one inside here. So I'm going to remove this one. So there will be nothing here except when we press, we see the use lose, and then we just see the changes inside the game. All right. So that was it for the creating this project using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In this section, you have learned how to get the elements using these methods, query selector all for all of the buttons, get element by ID, for targeting the IDs. We have just created 2 variables to track the changes inside the player and the computer score. We have added an event listener to each buttons using add event listener method. And then we have called a function called play round by passing the our choice and the computer choice, which is going to be calculated here. And also we have created the play round function, which is going to get our choice and the computer choice, compare them, and return the value of tie or lost or win. And then we have updated this computer score and the player score by changing their text content. All right, so that was it for the JavaScript part. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. Let me know your opinion about using GitHub Copilot to make the process of creating these projects faster, and also I have saved time to teach these projects. You let me know if you want me to use it or completely type everything from scratch. So see you in the next project.